Hello interwebs and welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I know that given the state of the world right now when this video comes out, a lot of us are having a really hard time staying positive, dealing with anxiety, dealing with isolation, dealing with loneliness, all because of the current pandemic that's going on around the world and especially hitting the United States where I am really hard at the moment and a few other countries as well. And so I wanted to take this moment and try to focus on something positive, something uplifting, and just have a way for us all to connect during this time when we're all like physically isolated from each other. So what I did is over on Twitter about a week or so ago, I asked for people to share with me some of their positive Trek stories and memories. And just a way to like hear what people remember about Trek, some positive feelings they have about Star Trek, and what they connected to with it. And I got a ton of responses on Twitter, and a few people actually DM'd me their more longer responses on there as well. And so, like I said, it's on Twitter, so a lot of these are shorter and a little bit bite-sized, and I thought that it would be just a nice way to sort of see how many people have such positive, uplifting thoughts and memories at this moment, and just share it with all of you out there so that you have something positive to sort of watch for a few minutes during this really hard time in pretty much all of our lives and basically the entire world's history at this moment. I'm just going to read a bunch of them and kind of share them with you, and I hope that you enjoy them. I hope they make you feel happy and uplifted and feeling positive. One of the things that I found very sweet was a lot of people had this same recurring trend of connecting Star Trek and watching Star Trek with time with their parents, usually often a father figure, but not always. And there was so many people sharing that type of story. And again, like I said, that is something that I connect with a lot as someone who shared a lot of Star Trek and got into Star Trek through my father. I mean, the first Star Trek I ever encountered was my dad putting on a Star Trek audiobook in the car, for heaven's sake. So can't get much nerdier moment sharing with your father than that. So let's just share some of those, and I think it'll be kind of sweet. Staying up late with my dad to watch the Voyager episode Phage when I was about 7. Kind of a funny episode given our current climate right now to be watching. Watching Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard with my partner, and finally having someone to sit and watch regular episodes of Trek with. That's something that I really connected with. I didn't have anyone that I watched Trek regular with besides my dad for the longest time in my life because it was kind of a nerdy thing. No one really ever thought about it, and no one really ever wanted to watch the show with me. They all thought it was like a geeky thing to do until Star Trek Discovery, actually. And then I had a bunch of friends over and we watched Star Trek Discovery regularly. Star Trek Picard I watched with my roommate regularly. It was just really nice to connect with people and actually find other Trekkies out there to share a physical space with to watch the show. And also on YouTube as well, sharing my reviews, sharing my discussions and live streams with all of you. It was really nice. So I understand deeply how important that is. This comes from someone who I absolutely adore and is also always on my Twitter, and also I know is very active in a lot of Star Trek communities, and that's Beta Artemis, or Captain Pikachu on Twitter. They say, seeing Christopher Pike beaming aboard Discovery and finally realizing that my decades-long childhood dream was finally coming true, and proceeding to sob for the next hour about it. I know Beta Artemis loves Captain Pike. And if you're watching, by the way, I am right there with you. I so love Captain Pike, and I'm so excited for the Captain Pike TV show, so which hopefully we'll get announced sometime. So that's just a very sweet memory, and I'm glad that seeing Pike finally be brought onto the screen for more than like a single episode or movie was something that meant a lot to Beta Artemis. Next up comes from fellow Trek YouTuber Trek on the Tube, who also does some wonderful Trek reviews and videos, so you should go check him out over on his channel. He says, watching the hashtag Star Trek Discovery premiere with my wife and good friend at Trekker Prize, who's also another Trek YouTuber. Regardless of what my opinion of the show is now, watching new Star Trek with my wife and friend over from the UK was so awesome. Again, sharing that physical space with somebody. The next one. When I was 16 and in my second Trek Renaissance, my first wanting a Trek collectible story involved me driving with my mom to our island's only Target before it opened, so I could buy the exclusive 2009 movie DVD Enterprise model box. A good memory during an otherwise dark time. Oh, that's super sweet. This one comes from Heather Ray, who's also someone who's very active in the Trek community, and you can find her over on Twitter. And also send her some love and support. I know she has her own businesses. I know she's kind of hurting because of financial times. So if you're a big fan of Heather, you should go find her on Twitter and give her some support over there. She said, I've been a Star Trek fan for a long time, having attended STLV, Star Trek Las Vegas, since 2009, and have loads of great memories. It's impossible to choose among them, so I'll just say that the Star Trek Twitter and the Found family here is the most special part of my fan experience. experience. Thanks all. She's so sweet. And I agree with her. The people that I've met on Twitter in the Star Trek family are absolutely wonderful. If you don't follow me over on Twitter, I'm not just getting followers, but please follow me over there because I post a lot of stuff there, and it's always very sweet to engage and interact with people over there. As much as I engage with a lot of people here on YouTube in the comments, I do a lot of it also on Twitter. So please give me a follow there if you're interested. Next one comes from Council of Geeks, who is a wonderful Doctor Who and just general geek YouTuber. Council of Geeks also talks about LGBTQ issues quite a lot, and we've done a few things together. I've been in a couple of their videos. They're going to be in a couple of my videos, so go check them out. They're absolutely wonderful. But they say, I spent summers at my grandparents', and there was a number of shows I considered to be my grandfather's shows. These were the things he'd usually be watching in the afternoon, evening in the living room. Lots of sitcoms, Cheers, MASH, Seinfeld, etc. But he would also watch Star Trek The Next Generation. This was the only one I actually reliably sat down to watch with him. So I have vivid memories of lying on my stomach, propped on my elbows, chin in my hands, watching those opening credits. That's super sweet. The picturesque, watching with your grandfather, with your head in your hands. That's absolutely adorable. Next up, I watched every Star Trek show live starting with TNG. My dad and I watched the premiere live on my 5th birthday in 1987. We continued the tradition for years. I remember the first time we watched the Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger, the screen went black after Riker said, "Mr. Worf, fire." I don't know why I did a Patrick Stewart voice there, but there you go. It said, "To be continued this fall." We lost our minds. My dad and I went to see every Star Trek movie together all the way through Star Trek Beyond. Now we talk Picard and Discovery together. Sweet. Very, very sweet. My parents would get rent tapes of DS9 and Voyager, and we'd watch all 4 episodes every weekend. While I'm a huge Trekkie and my parents are just casual fans, Star Trek has been a show I've enjoyed watching with loved ones. My wife and I are currently watching through it now. Also very sweet. This one I thought was supremely funny. This one says, I wasn't sure if my now husband and I were a good match. We were about to put a lot of work into a long-distance relationship, and I didn't know if it would be worth it. Then he made a joke about transparent aluminum. Me internally, let's give it a shot. That was absolutely great. This one's a little bit sad and a bit unfortunate, but it's very sweet to share and think about as well. I've been thinking a lot about how I used to watch rerun marathons of The Next Generation with my dad. We watched on a CRT in a darkened living room. He had a major stroke last week and is in hospice now. TNG has been a pretty important source of comfort for me. And I want to say first off to the person who wrote this message, I'm not sharing names unless I know they're big YouTubers or people. To the person who wrote this, I really hope that your father is doing okay and that everything's doing all right, especially right now. So my thoughts are with you. Also, I'm really glad that Star Trek brings you great memories and also is a place of comfort in this dark time. So like I said, I hope that, like the rest of this video, I hope that sharing your memories and getting to share Star Trek is something that brings you some light in a lot of the darkness. This one also is a little bit harder as well, but I think is important to share and discuss. Our family talking about and sitting down for the huge Voyager Dark Frontier event. It was a bigger than most Star Trek movies for us. We were all 7 fanatics. Family life was not great, abusive, but that and Endgame are some of the only positive memories I still have. I'm glad that Star Trek at least brought you some respite from that and can give you some positive memories about your family, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that situation with your family, and I hope that you're in a much better, more positive space now and are with people who more appreciate you and love you and treat you the way that you should and deserve to be treated. And I'm glad that at the very least Star Trek brought you positive memories of those times in the darkness and also were a respite from the hard times during that time. And like I said, I send you my thoughts for what you had to go through. This one I definitely relate to super hard. My evil stepmother prohibited Star Trek. My teenage rebellion involved secretly watching TNG. The ban was nullified shortly before All Good Things aired. Voyager was the first Star Trek I could watch openly thanks to my grandparents. That's something I identify with. Don't get me wrong, I love my stepmother. She is just like a mother to me. I adore her with all of my heart, but she hated anything that was super even edging towards violence. Anything rated M, video games, even though I was playing rated M video games at my mother's house all the time, she would completely ban from my father's house and would take them from me, and I would not be able to play, and was always a source of frustration for me. Rated R movies I couldn't watch. Funny, because when I was a kid, I already watched them at my mom's house. And I seem to be a fairly decent kid, so I don't know why I can't watch them here. So I kind of identify with that and thought it was kind of funny. This one I found super sweet, and this one was messaged to me. Kira from Star Trek Deep Space Nine changed my life, and I'm not joking. I had gone through serious trauma as a teen, and I was left on my own to deal with the PTSD. I wasn't allowed to talk about what had happened to me, and I definitely wasn't allowed to be angry about it. Then I started watching DS9 and I saw Kira. Kira had gone through far worse than me and she was angry about it. Nobody ever told her she couldn't be, probably because she might have whooped them if they did. And she used her anger in a positive way so that her people could have better lives. That was revolutionary to me, and I owe to this very day part of the healing of my heart to Nana Visitor's performance as Kira. I got that it was okay to be angry over what had happened and that I could do something good with it, and I have. That's one of the most positive and uplifting stories that I've heard come out of Trek, that Trek shows you a path forward with your own life and the hardships in your own life. And I'm so glad that Kira, who is one of the best written characters in all of Star Trek, was able to provide that to you. It's very, as much as it sucks that you had to go through that situation and have PTSD from it, again, I very much know how that feels, very, very deeply. I'm very glad that you were able to use Star Trek as a guiding light and how to use your experience, as regretful as it is and as much as it shouldn't have happened, to turn it into something positive and something that pushes you forward and makes you feel encouraged and makes you feel useful, even though it was something that you shouldn't have had to deal with in the first place. So I'm so glad with that. So thank you for sharing that story. And the last one I'm going to share here, Birmingham, Alabama, 1978. The concrete steps beside my house were the perfect-sized duplicate of the Enterprise bridge. My few friends and I making dashboards out of cardboard boxes and playing Star Trek. A very unusual situation for that time and place, one of a few good times. That's super sweet. I'm actually very jealous that you had friends that you were able to play like Star Trek Enterprise with, Star Trek Bridge with, when you were a kid. I didn't have anyone who wanted to play Star Trek stuff, so I'm glad that you had that. So I hope some of those stories, as dark as some of them were, I hope that they were uplifting and really gave you some encouragement, some hope in this dark time, especially the dark stories, to be honest. The darker stories that have the darker edge to it show us that in this dark time we can use Star Trek as a guiding light to help us find positives and find ways out. And I just figured that, since this is a mainly Trek-focused channel, though not exclusively, that I figured using Star Trek to talk about like positive memories and how to get out of dark times was really important. And I wanted to make sure that I shared all of your voices on this channel as well, because as much as this is my channel, the only reason this channel exists is because of all of you and the support and the encouragement and the thoughtfulness and the kindness that all of you give. And in that way, it's very much just as much your channel as it is mine. And I am so endlessly thankful for your kindness and love and support on here and on this channel. Speaking of which, before we wrap out, I just want to say thank you. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that bell as well to make sure you get all the notifications. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up for this video as well if you liked it. Also, if you want to help make these videos even better and also support me financially during these times right now, I'm having a little bit of some nervousness with some finances considering everything going on with the economy at the moment. Please consider giving me some support over on Patreon. It would really mean a lot to me. You get some cool perks like your name in videos and things like that as well. And regardless of if you subscribe or get to my Patreon, though, I'm just glad that you stopped by, and I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. And special thanks to my commander level and above Patreons, especially right now, Eli Bergmas, Stefan Schuhart, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Lal Lindley, Marika Kuyechin, Munir Amlani, and Mystic the Monakit.